writing code, making changes to code before you fully understand it, not following precedent, adding features, and poor commenting. But looking at the first mistake and thinking, it's not a mistake. Writing code is my job. You're the mistake, Isaac. Hang on, let me explain. There's not much to explain, really. What you're doing is not cutting edge. It's been done before. And so your best bet for writing code is trying to find some existing code that has been done before and copy that and then just tweak it a little bit because it won't be exactly what you've done, okay? So, there's a little bit of original thinking, fortunately, for us as programmers. A little bit of a challenge. But that's your best bet for when you start writing code is to look for an existing project. It's going to make you faster at coming up with code, and it's going to make your code higher quality because it's already been written before, it's tested, it's consistent with other code of the company, and it's been debugged. The second mistake is making changes to code before you fully understand it. Now this one has to do with changing code that's already in existence. And the number one drawback here is you're going to have unintended consequences if you don't fully understand the code. So there's not really a substitute for digging through the code and fully understanding it. It might take you 3 or 4 hours. It might take you 3 or 4 days and a couple notebooks. I'm just kidding. It shouldn't take you a couple notebooks unless they're really, really tiny notebooks, maybe like that big. But in general, you should be able to get through it pretty quick. And but then once you do, the rewards are unfathomable. You're going to be like super confident in your changes, and you're going to know how to test the code that you changed as well because you understand how it might fail. It's going to be well integrated into the architecture. You're going to be faster at making future changes now that you're super familiar with it. You won't have to go through all that work again and all those tiny notebooks. You're going to have great exposure to alternate programming ideas and techniques. There's a million and one ways to program any given thing, and your way may be the best way. But it also may not. And if you take the time to read through somebody else's code, you might pick up some good habits. The third mistake is not following precedent, and this again has to do with changing code that's already in existence. It's going to be easier to understand in the future if you make changes that are consistent with the way it's done in the rest of the code, and you're not going to be introducing any new bugs because any bugs that are in existence because of the way it's done will continue to be there if you copy the same way it's done. You're not introducing a new way and then new potential bugs. So I got an example real quick. Let's say you read through some code and you fully understand it and it's a step-based program, step 0, step 1, step 2, step 3, but you're like, we only got 32 bits and a dint, so that means we can only have 32 steps. That's dumb. And why are these names all generic? Why can't we just put the sensor right in here? Unlatch and latch, man. I've seen it done such a better way, So I am going to have a variable that contains the current step, and I'm going to add this fourth step because that's why you got into the code in the first place, was to make some changes. But you're not going to follow them because, as you can see right here from his comment, that he was a moron. And you are going to move that into there. You're going to AFI that mess because it's a mess, man. What was he thinking? And you're going to move 4 in there, and now you're going to be like, oh, if we're in step 4, then we're going to look at these. And then we're going to latch in step 0 because, he wrote it dumb, so some of my code is going to have to work with his, and so it'll be dumb too. And then, of course, you do some stupid comments in here, super unprofessional. But the problem here is not functionality. It very well may work, this code of yours that you wrote. In fact, it probably will. But the bigger thing is the understandability and consistency for future programmers. You don't want your code to look like lasagna. I was going to say spaghetti, but ladder logic really does look like spaghetti, like really organized spaghetti, but lasagna is a little bit more curly and confusing, and you got cheese in there and sauce, and I don't know, that confuses me. I don't like it. But yeah, so that's following precedent. So if there's existing code there, then copy the way that it was done, and if there's a problem with the way it was done, then it's not on you, it's on the other guy. Well, it's a little bit on you. Maybe you should have realized that there are bugs, but that's really defeating my point. So let's talk about the fourth mistake, which is adding features. You're like, what the heck? Adding features is good. The customers love it. The operators now have this more additional information. So What are the disadvantages of adding features? Your code is more complicated, it's harder to understand, and takes longer, and let's see, what else? Oh, it's a little bit less portable, so somebody else goes to copy your code, and you got all these advanced things in there that only were designed for that particular system, and now they don't work as well. Of course, this isn't like a hard and fast rule, but in general, your code's going to be less portable if the more complicated you make it. So let's look at another example, right? Here we go. So the customer spec for this particular machine, it's an inspection machine. You're inspecting parts with a camera, and every site it pulls parts through and cycles them through and inspects them. And at the end of each inspection, you have a cycle complete bit that gets set for a little while until the next part comes in, and then you also have a part passed bit. And so what this does is on every new cycle, you increment the total number of parts processed and the number of parts failed if it didn't pass. And then once you get to 10 parts, you calculate the percent fail, and you give that off to the HMI to display. And it clearly says up here in the comment that the customer spec says that it's only doing it for every 10 parts, and they specifically said they didn't mind if it wasn't a rolling count. But you're like, you know what? I think I would mind, so I'm going to do it the right way. And I am going to have a rolling count. I'm going to have a shift register, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be shorter. And so you write this in here, and then you're like, okay, now I got the shift register, but I actually got to interpret the information in there. And so then you got to write another routine that you signal to run with this latch here. And this routine is a little bit more bigger, and it's you got it's a for loop because you're looping through every element of this array, and so you got this loop label here, and then you don't directly address anything. You've got indirect addressing here with the increment variable, and then you're like, all right, and then once we do 10, we're gonna see how many have failed so far. We're going to divide that by the current increment plus 1 because it's 0 based, and you're like, let's do 50. I did all this hard work, so let's do 50, 100, 500, and 1,000. And then if this is obviously just a basic while type structure. While it's less than 999, add 1 to it and keep looping through. And okay, so what's the big deal? I already told you, don't ask. But I'll go through it again. It's going to be more easily understood if you have fewer features because it's going to be simpler. More programmers are going to be able to do it. That's one thing I didn't mention. Thank you for asking, actually. So now only a certain level of programmer, like a level 5 programmer, can now program this because levels the entrance exam for level 5 had to do with indirect addressing. So a level 4 programmer doesn't know about this beautiful stuff. And so now you just cut out a whole bunch of people that can modify or maintain your code. And that's not good because readability is an attribute of quality code. And if it's simpler, it's going to be, like I said, quicker to develop and debug. There are going to be fewer bugs in the first place because the more code you have, the more bugs you have, and it's going to be more portable because it won't be as confusing and as machine specific. The final one, I'm going to zip through this one real quick, is poor commenting. All right, big picture, big picture, big picture. When you're writing comments, think big picture. Here is a quote that describes it pretty well. Comments tell you what the code does. The code tells you how it does it. All right, example. So remember this one wrong right here. See this really brief and wonderful comment here that just tells you what it does? Cool. So what would bad commenting look like? Well, you can fail on either side of this. You can have too much or too little. And I wrote an example of each one. Example of too little is easy because I just copied it and deleted the comment. Too much looks like this. I mean, good grief. This isn't a library. We didn't come here to read. We came here to program. So, I mean, I honestly, I feel like it would be quicker just to read through this to understand what's going on than it would be to read through all these comments. And comments are supposed to help you understand it. This just gives you way too much detail. You're going to be sitting here reading this. I wrote it, and I don't even feel like reading it. It looks dumb to me. But yeah, this just like goes through and tells you what does an XIC do? He already knows because he's a programmer. And this copy instruction explains that in way too much detail, and It tells you the 0th element represents the most recent verification. Man, that was verbose. But yeah, so keep your commenting focused on the big picture. Make sure you put comments in. But it doesn't really need to be that long. It's not that hard. So yeah. Well, anyways, that was the last one. We're done. Actually, not quite. Could you fill out the survey real quick? It's down there in the comment or the description. YouTube doesn't let you put links in the video to surveys for some reason, and of course I honored that because I had to. I didn't really have a choice. But yeah, I put that in there. I'm curious what brought you here, what you might be interested in seeing in the future from me about PLC programming. So do that, and it would be a great service to me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I'll see you next time.